Interesting fight coming up this weekend. We have all-in Brendan Allen looking to step in for his teammate Philadelphia Phil Collins. No, it is Megatron Phil Hawes to take on Smiling Sam Alvey. Now listen, all of these incredible nicknames, I think we could say. I think Megatron's better than Smiling. But when I look at this fight, I really have to quantify it as the ghosts of Chris Curtis past. Because ultimately for Chris Curtis, in just under a month, he was able to get wins over Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen and really kind of make a giant impact in a division that really isn't even his own. I mean, the guy's a middleweight now, but he used to be a welterweight and he's knocking everybody dead. So when we look at this fight for Brendan Allen, taking it on less than a week's notice against Sam Alvey, and I think the biggest thing to me that steps out, you have to feel for a guy like Sam Alvey when you look at the odds in this fight. We don't often start our Fight Night Picks videos here, but usually, when a short notice replacement comes in, you get a little bit more parity. It drives the odds down a little bit. Brendan Allen right now a minus 405 favorite. Sam Alvey a plus 308. And to give you an example, Brian Keller was supposed to take on Said Yakub Rakhmonov. He was a giant underdog. Rakhmonov's out. In steps Kevin Kroom. And automatically, Brian Keller is a pretty big favorite. He was in the 2-1 range. So when I look at this fight, Brendan Allen all in 17-5, 6-2 in the UFC, a quality of opponent that he's taken on. And you look at his two losses, and I have a lot to say about them, but I mean, really, you look at Brendan Allen at his 17-5, former LFA middleweight champ. You lose to Chris Curtis, you lose to one half of this weekend's main event, Sean Strickland. You consider the wins over the co-main event, one half of Punahele Soriano, Carl Robertson, Kyle Dawkins, Tom Breeze, Kevin Holland, and Aaron Jeffrey on Contender Series, the Canadian that just won't go away. He's like the cat that came back the very next day. So, Matt, when I look at this fight, Brendan Allen has a lot of those intangibles that you like to see out of a young fighter. And the nice thing about him, too, Louisiana guy, trains at Rufus Sport, makes the move over to Sanford MMA. And we've seen these little gains every time he switches camps. I really like his game. And I have a little bit of a knock that I'll bring out later on against some of the fans out there in the comments section about Brendan Allen. But Matt, he's a major favorite coming into this fight. So what do you have to say about this one?
Well, he's fighting a guy who hasn't won in years. So that's probably why he is a big favorite. This is a weird fight because it almost feels like the UFC has been looking for excuses to keep Sam Alvey around. If we are being honest, he's been on a big losing streak. A lot of people are kind of surprised to see him around. This isn't the type of matchup you give to a guy when you're trying to keep him around in the UFC because, like you mentioned, normally you have someone coming in on a week's notice. Even if, let's say, the odds would be par, automatically they're going to get docked something just because they didn't have a full training camp. But with Brendan Allen, you look at sort of his ideal game plan for how a fight should go. That destroys the type of fighter that Sam Alvey has kind of become, because this is the problem with Sam Alvey, and this is the difference between him and the last two losses that Brendan Allen has suffered. And to me, it's quite simple. Sam Alvey is slow, but has good power. Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis, they're very, very fast with their hand speed. And that is the big difference to me, because when Strickland and Curtis can get inside of your range, they can really make you pay for it. Does Sam Alvey walk forward nowadays? Not unless you walk immediately into a big power shot, and then you could just let him carry those groceries across the cage and hit you with another one a la Prakniau all those years ago. Like, Sam Alvey isn't the moving forward kind of fighter he was, even in the Rashad Evans fight. Like, that was a clinch-heavy fight, and hey, Rashad has a win more recently than Sam Alvey. Not a great sign. I'm just saying, this stylistically isn't a great matchup for Sam Alvey because Alvey himself has very low volume. He has good takedown defense, and I'd honestly say Sam Alvey is an extremely underrated grappler because we don't really see it that much in the UFC, but if you've ever gone back and watched him outside the UFC, and even early on, he has a really nice guillotine, he is a decent defensive grappler. I just don't know what he's going to do other than hit Brendan Allen with a big power shot early to try to get that pressure off of him.
So Sam Alvey's a southpaw. Now, Brendan Allen's one of those really tricky fighters because he is a great grappler. He's added some of the striking into his game, and maybe that's gotten him caught against Strickland, and maybe that got him caught against his last fighter, Chris Curtis. The one thing I have to say, and it's a knock against that, is the fact that those fights were on incredibly short notice. When he fought Sean Strickland and he lost, that was his first UFC loss, on a heater of a win streak, he was originally supposed to take on a couple of different fighters. So if you look at it against Chris Curtis, he was originally supposed to take on Brad Tavares and Roman Dolidze. Strickland, it was actually against Ian Heinisch, who was supposed to take on Sam Alvey this weekend. But when you look at it for Brendan Allen, so he's supposed to fight Ian Heinisch, and then a week later, he ends up with Sean Strickland. That fight's at a catch weight of 195 pounds. If you're getting ready for Ian Heinisch, most of the time, unless it's Bangkok-ready Heinisch, which Brendan Allen's become a little bit more of as he's moved over to Sanford MMA. But when you're fighting a guy like Ian Heinisch, you have to expect the wrestling. Look at the Kelvin Gastelum fight against Heinisch. That's pretty well what you're going to get. So in that fight, I wonder what kind of a game plan Brendan Allen had for that fight. I assume defensive hips. I'm going to stuff some takedowns. I'm going to strike with him on the feet. Because that's what he did against Strickland. Allen didn't go for any takedowns. And eventually, it's a right hook in tight that rocks Allen, stumbles him back, and then he ends up getting finished. Then you look at the fight against Chris Curtis, it's back and forth, and you look at it...
We're talking about Sam Alvey, though.
Hear me out. When he's fighting Chris Curtis, it's a back and forth fight. Brendan Allen's having a great time. In the Strickland fight, Strickland was popping him with the jab. It was causing Allen a lot of issues in that fight, and then eventually right hook finishes him. In the fight against Chris Curtis, they had their Dan Hardy, Carlos Condit moment where they both swung with right hooks, and Chris Curtis hit harder and knocked Brendan Allen down, and that was the end of the fight. So my whole thing on this one is I look into those losses as you fought really good competition on incredibly short notice for a camp that you weren't preparing for. Now again, Sam Alvey, it's the same thing in this fight. He was getting ready for Heinisch, then he was getting ready for Phil Hawes, now Brendan Allen on short notice. But all that to say, for Brendan Allen, I still think he's a very good prospect. So let's go over to the YouTube community tab. I threw it out there last night, and I said that this video will come out with the rest of the individual videos for UFC Vegas 47. Out of the comments, Reese is saying, Allen wins comfortably and Dana awards Alvey with another 5-fight contract to celebrate his 6-fight losing streak. He hasn't won a fight since 2018, if we're being honest. The next one, I believe Allen should win comfortably and decisively, but I'm worried about his durability, given he got cracked about 2 months and by Alvey's teammate. Yeah, that one is true because it wasn't that long ago. But I mean, you continue to go down through it. Akash Deep saying, I think Alvey takes it. But man, in my opinion, his fight IQ is poor. Akash Deep, friend of the show, I just disagree with that one just a little bit based on those 2 fights and the way that they came together.
Well, he didn't go for a takedown against Strickland, though, and that is slightly low fight IQ.
Or Chris Curtis, but he's kind of become more of a striker, and Sean Strickland has good takedown defense. All I will say, Matt, before I hand it back off to you, again, Brendan Allen is a minus 405 favorite. Sam Alvey in the range of a plus 305, plus 310. Over on Instagram, in the Fight Night Picks story, a total 403 votes for Brendan Allen to 63 for Alvey. That's good for 87% for Brendan Allen. He's a giant favorite in the fans. The majority have him to win. So for Sam Alvey, can he crack that left hand out there?
No, he can't. Chris Curtis, like you said, he's a phenomenal middleweight, and this isn't even really his division right now. And Sean Strickland is at the top of this card on the poster right now, whereas Sam Alvey, everybody's making jokes about why is this guy still in the UFC. Yes, we can all be concerned about some of the lapses in judgment, perhaps, that Brendan Allen has had in the past, because I have to defend Akash Deep a little bit. If you don't go for takedowns against guys that you supposedly should have a big grappling advantage over, then it does show poor fight IQ, I would say. In my mind's eye, when Brendan Allen got Kevin Holland to the ground, and Kevin Holland's a pretty good grappler, he immediately submit him after getting cracked on the feet. So if you're Allen, you can realize, okay, I've been hurt on the feet before, I dominate guys and I get them to the mat. I would just think that he would have sort of the presence of mind to go for a lot more takedowns. I think he will in this fight, because this thing about Sam Alvey, he's kind of the bare bones version of, okay, this could work against Brendan Allen, but it's probably not going to, because he does lack a lot of the intangibles at this stage of his career. And if we're going to be fair to Sam Alvey, just kind of look at what Punahele Soriano does and level it down a bunch at this stage, because Soriano has great power from both sides, he has way better takedown defense, and he's a much higher level athlete. Sam Alvey has sort of all the same weapons, but just not at this stage of his career, so I do like Brendan Allen quite a bit in this fight.
Smiling Sam is 35 years old. Brendan Allen is not. He is much younger coming into this fight at 26 in a month. So happy birthday to Brendan Allen. I know he tunes into the show, so that one is interesting, but yeah, both of us in this one going with all in Allen. I think the one big thing for Brendan Allen, especially moving forward when it comes to that fight IQ, it's being able to change from your game plan and making those in-fight adjustments, because we've seen that be a major issue.
And I think we can both agree, if there was ever a must-win situation in the UFC, Brendan Allen went from really promising prospect, okay, he's got a loss, now he's back on track, to, okay, he's got a couple losses, what do we really have here? If then you go on to lose to Sam Alvey, who, like you said, hasn't won a fight since 2018, we've got serious concerns, and the
it's
prospect
over.
Yeah. To quote Kenny Smith in the Vince Carter dunk competition, it would be over for Allen, and that'd be really disappointing because I know I had really high hopes for him at one point in the UFC, and it would be nice to see him get back on track at some point.
Well, a big time fight, both of the Allens going for Brendan Allen out of Louisiana. Big time card coming up this weekend, full of middleweights. I can't wait for it. I mean, listen, one of my favorite fights, you've got Almeida taking on Marques. That's a big one. Soriano Maximov in the main event. Hermansson Highness. Check out the Mummy Cats. Big time band out there. Hopefully they can make some music for the show. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.